Hello, welcome to a brand new episode of the Youth Have a Voice podcast. If this is your first time listening to me, hi, my name is Feolami Joseph, and I am the host and creator of this podcast. The Youth Have a Voice is a podcast to share the stories of young people across the world who are doing remarkable things and also to share insights and tips of things that young people go through usually on a daily basis. And today I'm going to be talking about something that a lot of young people go through. Today, I will be speaking about rejection and how to handle rejection. So, you must have at least heard of the word rejection before, and I think this is actually something that people will go through at least once in their life. Dictionary definition of rejection is the dismissing or refusing of a proposal, idea, etc. So, rejection is something that people go through at least once in their life. It could be rejection from a job interview, it could be rejection from a school you really wanted to go to, it could be rejection from an idea that you thought would break doors for you. Anything, people get rejection every single day, and honestly, it's something that sometimes may stop people's morale and it may down people's emotions. I would say the very first time or the very first encounter I had with rejection was when I was about 8 years old, when I was still in primary school. Back when I was in primary school, I was a part of the school choir, and I was a part of school choir up until I finished primary school. And then when I went to secondary school, high school, I was part of the choir up until I was in year 10, till I was about 14, 15 years old. So in primary school, I was part of the choir and I was going to be part of a competition that was going to be outside of school. Back when I was younger, I loved performing. I loved being on stage and I loved showcasing myself to people. So we had been practicing for this competition for months and I was an alto singer and I was really excited to finally be able to show what I had been practicing to the world or for the people that were going to be on the stage to listen to. I even remember the song that we were going to be singing on that day. By the time we got to the center where the competition was taking place, the choir master just told everyone that we were too many and he was going to have to cut us down because they said they only needed about 20 people or 30 people on stage. And I think we're almost 50 people in the choir. That meant that a good chunk of people were not going to be on the stage. Now, before this competition, I had been in the choir for maybe about 3 years since I was in like year two. Okay, let's say 2 years when I was in year two. So I'd been on the choir for about 2 years. So I'd been going every single day because this was something I enjoyed doing. I was also a part of dance club at a point in time. So everything performance, I really loved being a part of it. It came as a huge shock to me when I was told I was not going to be performing on stage with everyone else. I remember it literally felt like my world had come crumbling down at that point in time. In my head, I was like, what do you mean I am not going to be performing on stage? So the choir master basically said, oh, you go, you go, you go, you stay, you stay, you stay. So I had to watch the people who were selected to go on stage perform while I sat in the corner in the audience and I was not able to perform with everyone. And this was something I had been practicing for weeks and weeks and weeks. Mind you, I cried throughout the entire performance. I didn't even bother listening or looking at what they did. And if you know me now, I'm not a very sensitive person, but when I was much younger, I was very sensitive and things like that would break me instantly. So I remember crying throughout the entire performance because I just felt really bad about it. So after the performance, I don't even remember what place we came, but regardless of what place we came, I just didn't feel happy about it because I didn't have any say or I didn't have any impact on our position since I wasn't selected. It made me feel as if I wasn't good enough, which was the reason why I was not selected to go on stage. Now, the next form of rejection I remember vividly facing was when I was 9, maybe a year and a few months later. So it's certain December. I went for this December program, 25th of December. It was on Christmas Day, I remember. So I went for this show with my parents and there was a dancing competition. So if you remember, I mentioned that I used to love performing when I was younger. Anything for people to see me, to showcase me, I loved being a part of it. So there was a dancing competition, and basically it was up to the crowd to choose who was the better dancer. So who the better dancer was to get a prize, and then the other person that wasn't good enough, the crowd would boo them and they'll go back to their seats. When it came to my time, I was booed, and I remember that I would probably say that was the worst Christmas I encountered having, because I literally didn't want to do anything afterwards. I just wanted to go home. I was recently seeing pictures of when I was 9 years old, and I burst out laughing, thinking back at what happened, because on the rides and stuff my parents had taken me on, I didn't want to be a part of anything anymore. I was just extremely frustrated and extremely angry that I was not chosen to move on to the next stage, and I was booed off the stage by the people who were watching me. So, from these examples, I would say that I have actually experienced rejection from a very, very early age. And unfortunately for me, as I got older, rejection seemed to become more rampant. I remember even as I got into secondary school, there would be certain times whereby I would want to do something and I wouldn't be chosen, someone else would be chosen for it. And for someone who had experienced rejection from a very early age, I think that that actually had a huge toll on my mental health and my confidence, because every time I wanted to do something, at the back of my mind, I would think, oh, I'm not going to get accepted. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. So I used to think that everything I did, I will end up getting rejected for it, because no one ever saw my worth and no one ever saw how good I was at anything, because it always seemed there were people that were going to be always better than me. So no one was ever going to notice how great I was. So I think that rejection is something that people go through a lot. And even as you navigate your teenage years, as you navigate being a young person, it's something that you will probably experience more often. And it's something you also need to learn how to overcome. And handling rejection is such a crucial skill for people of all ages to learn. So I will start by saying rejection is a natural part of life. And as I said before, rejections come in different phases, from being in school to wanting to be a part of a club, to wanting to be a part of a competition. And even as you get older, you could get rejection through friendships. That's also happened to me before. You get rejections through dating, through job applications. So I work in human resources, and obviously you can't always choose all the candidates. So when you send emails back to people telling them they were not selected, that's a form of rejection. And sometimes it can really hurt people's spirits. I remember there was someone who called me to ask why he was rejected. And honestly, sometimes it's just the way it is. Things always just happen. And it can actually affect one emotionally. And I'm speaking from personal experience too. So some of the things that may happen when you're rejected, at first you may feel confused. I think that's the first thing that people may have when they get rejected. You may feel confused that why me? I thought this was going on great. Then you may also feel sad. There's usually a period of sadness depending on how excited you were about what you were going to be going through. You could also feel angry because you would have felt, oh, I'm just so good at this. Why don't these people see my worth? So anger is also something that may come a lot with rejection. And then obviously you could also feel self-doubt. And I think this is something that a lot of people may feel, because they suddenly just stop thinking that they are worth it. So these are feelings I would say that are okay to have, and it's definitely okay to feel hurt. It's definitely okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad, frustrated, to doubt yourself. It's okay to go through these feelings, because it gets easier over time. And obviously you won't always get accepted to everything you want. Even recently, I got rejected from something I was really looking forward to. Like, I was so certain I was going to get accepted into the program I had applied for. I had made it to the final stage, and it was basically just a shortlisting stage left, only for me to receive an email that I was rejected. And even though I have learned to understand my self worth and to overcome it, it doesn't make the feeling of rejection feel easier, especially if it was something that you really thought you were going to get like accepted into. So it's definitely normal to feel sad or feel confused about yourself when going through rejection. As I got older, though, I would say that my approach towards things like that became easier. in the sense that sometimes you have to reflect and learn from the experience. So, apart from the things I mentioned of when I was still in school, even outside of school, I would face rejections from certain things. Like I used to enjoy writing, I still do, and I would apply for certain writing competitions, and then I would receive an email. Unfortunately, you have not been accepted to this. Unfortunately, you've not been accepted to that. Honestly, I hate that word. That unfortunately we regret to inform you that that phrase in itself, it can be so demeaning when you see it. I remember I was telling someone recently that the moment you receive a long explanation from anything that you applied to and you receive an email, the likelihood of getting rejected is high, because most times when you get a congratulatory email, the either the header starts with congratulations or the first paragraph starts with congratulations. So when you usually get an email where they're going through chapter and verse and saying that you were a good candidate but you were not the perfect fit for this time, it's usually a rejection email. However, it doesn't matter, because sometimes you just need to reflect on the experience. So it's very important for you to always reflect on what may have happened, even though you may feel upset or you may feel sad you didn't get into something you were looking forward to. Reflecting is one of the best ways to understand why or what you could do better the next time. So, for example, let's say you were at an interview and actually, sometimes you can actually go back and ask them, what do you think I could have done better? Sometimes they do send emails to respond to you. So you could ask, okay, I'm trying to improve on myself. Thank you for your email. I would always advise people to respond to rejection emails, as tough as it may seem. Sometimes literally just ask them, what do you think I could have done better? What do you think a better approach could have been for me to be a more worthy candidates? And usually, sometimes it doesn't mean that you are not good enough. It's sometimes rejection is a form of redirection, right? Because even though you may feel upset, even though you may feel sad, sometimes there could be a reason why that door was not open for you at that moment in time. So it's sometimes usually just a strategy for you to reflect, or it could even be that something bigger is coming for you in the near future, and there was just something you needed to learn from that experience. So it's important for you to actually take the step towards learning and reflecting, to be able to know the next steps to take in the case that you are in a similar situation, or even if you wanted to apply for whatever you got rejected from the next year or the next couple of months. So making sure you reflect and learn from the experience is very important. Another thing is to accept you're rejected. And I think this is a step that a lot of people may actually have problems taking in, because imagine thinking you were going to get into a university. Let's make it relatable for the younger people, or for people in the age demographic that may be listening to this. Imagine thinking you were going to get into your dream university. You had connected with people who were already in the school. You had connected with some professors you thought you knew. You've followed them on social media. You've watched all the moving in vlogs, only to receive an email that you were rejected. After planning your entire life around that, it may seem really devastating to receive that kind of email, and you may not know where to go from there, because your entire life has been centered around this bubble that had not even happened. So basically, accepting and having compassion for yourself is one of the first steps in coping with rejection. It's important to remember that it's okay to feel hurt, but be kind to yourself during this time. So practicing self compassion by reminding yourself that being rejected doesn't define who you are is a very important step to cope with rejection. Even at a job interview, sometimes maybe you had applied to your dream company and then you received an email that either you didn't make it to the next stage, or even at the final stage you were rejected. It can be something that may be hard for someone to take in, especially if they had already envisioned themselves working there, they had connected with people who worked in the company. So be kind to yourself. That's a very important part of handling rejection properly. Then another thing is to positively affirm yourself. So remind yourself of your strengths, your achievements. Remind yourself of how far you have gotten actually as a person. Because I think when negative things happen to us sometimes, sometimes it's difficult to remember the positive things that could have happened to us not too far from even when you were rejected. So, for example, you could have gotten accepted to something a month ago, and because you're rejected to something that seems bigger, you suddenly feel like you're not worth it or you're not good enough because you were really looking forward to getting accepted to everything. So, remember that you are good, you are kind, you are worthy, you're excellent, you're resilient, and I always say that rejection shouldn't be a point to give up. I can't count the number of times I have been rejected from things, but I think it has become a sort of rock for me. So even when I get rejected from things, I don't let that be the end of the world because I always try to rise up above it. So even as the work I do, I usually make a lot of pitches to people. Sometimes I'm ghosted from things. Sometimes I'll be told, "Oh, I'll get back to you." No one ever gets back to me, and all these are forms of rejection. Sometimes I could be even promised something and then it ends up not happening. So these are all different forms of rejection, and someone who may be listening to this or someone who may be thinking about these things may think, I can't go on anymore. But I have the mindset that even if they reject me, I would move on to the next thing. Even if I'm rejected from this, even if I'm not given the attention I need, I'll move on to the next thing and I'll still be resilient and achieve, to the point that the people who rejected me, who didn't see what I was going through or didn't see my vision, would even be wondering that, we should have accepted this person then, we should have done this then. So overcoming and being stronger than what had happened to you is also a way. So being resilient is extremely important after being rejected. So allow yourself the time to be sober, to be sad, but overcome immediately. So as something negative happens after you have taken the time to feel bad about it, make sure that you're pushing on to the next thing so that you can come back stronger than ever. And always just remember that if something doesn't work out now, it could work out later in the future, or it could just be that you still need something to learn from that experience, or sometimes it's just not meant for you. Sometimes you may just get rejected from some things, but it doesn't mean that you're not good. It's just not your time in that aspect. Or you could even be being protected from something you had no idea about. It's also very important to stay positive. Don't now think that it's the end of the world. Don't think that you are not great. So be positive every time. Focus on your strengths and what you are good at. Think of things that have worked for you in the past so that you don't dwell on the negative, and practice gratitude. Oh my goodness, I can't stress this enough. Practice gratitude. I have a gratitude journal, and this is basically where I write things I am grateful for. Usually, at the end of every month, I usually have a wrap up to say, "Oh, I'm grateful that for this that happened in my life. I'm grateful for that happened in my life." So even when negative things happen, or even when it feels like everything is against me, and then I look at my gratitude journal, I'm like, "Oh, so much has actually happened, and I didn't realize." And the importance of gratitude is that it opens your eyes to so many things you would have taken for granted. Even as simple as I'm grateful for being alive. It's something to be grateful for. I'm grateful for being able to move. I'm grateful for being able to eat. I'm grateful to have a roof over my head. Practicing gratitude is so important. And I think it also makes you have a mindset that there are so many things that await you regardless of the fact that you got rejected. For you to still have been able to accomplish these things, it means that there's so much more that you can wait that awaits you in the world. It's not the end of the world regardless of the fact that you were not accepted to the things you were really looking forward to. Also, another thing that I would say is not very popular when it comes to rejection is sometimes starting things of your own. So, as I've mentioned multiple times, I have faced rejection a lot. And I think that one thing I have done to kind of make myself overcome rejection is being the one to create the things or create the networks that I wanted to be in. So someone can't reject you from what is yours. Even if you're not getting accepted to certain things, sometimes it could just be that you could be the one to create that thing you've been looking forward to. Obviously, it will not be as easy as someone who is on a completely different level from you, but being able to overcome certain things and being able to actually create your own things may even be a better approach to take when it comes to handling rejection. And then, last but not least, I was speaking about trying again. So, persistence is so important. There are so many successful people that have faced rejection multiple times before achieving their goals. Some people may have had to go through pitches over and over and over again before they were able to accomplish their goals. So, being persistent, if something doesn't work out now, you always can try again. Always think of, okay, what can I do better, and try again. Be persistent, and things would always work out in the end if it is meant for you. So don't kill yourself, or don't think it's the end of the world just because something didn't work out the first time. So it's important to remember, try, keep on trying, keep on working on yourself. Also, have a supportive network. Surround yourself with people who would be there to support you, who will be there to uplift you. So this could be your friends, this could be your family members, this could be your mentors. As I mentioned, I also recently got rejected from something that I was really looking forward to getting into, but I have had a very supportive system around me who've been able to encourage me and let me know that it's not the end of the world, regardless of the fact that what I had been looking forward to did not work out. So, having a very supportive system is also very important as you navigate rejection. I hope you've been able to learn from today's episode. I hope I've been able to teach you something today. Rejection is normal. It's something that you would have to go through at least once in your life. So don't let it consume you. It's a way for you to learn from what may be going on, maybe a way for you to have a sort of character development. So make sure that you don't let it consume your being. It's okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry, but overcome it because there are brighter days ahead every time. So, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed listening to me, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to share with your family members and friends. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening and have a good day. Goodbye.